Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the AM Report for HAPS News, the network of now. I'm Alex Mahajer. It is, what day is it? It's Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. It's Earth Day. Happy Earth Day. And this morning on Earth Day, we're going to talk about this virtual climate summit being hosted by the president, where 40 leaders on the world stage have joined together to discuss the climate crisis. We're going to talk about the U.S. and Biden's proposal to make it a leader in the free world on reducing carbon emissions. We're going to talk about Democrats passing D.C. statehood and Stacey Abrams and the gotcha questions by Republicans in the Jim Crow 2021 hearings happening before the Senate on voting rights restrictions, plus some of today's top headlines. All of this and more this morning on the AM Report. Thank you so much for joining this morning, everybody. I'm Alex Mahajer. If you're watching on the HAPS app or website, click the award button. Let me know you're enjoying it. If you're watching on Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, Twitter, leave a comment. We'll bat around live with each other on air. Good morning to everybody already joining. Good morning, Eleanor. Happy Earth Day. Good to see you. Good morning, Michelle Alexander. Happy Earth Day. Everyone's really stoked on Earth Day, including Space Force Captain. Good to see you. And hi, Krista from Baltimore. Where are you guys watching from? What are you guys thinking as we go into this Thursday? And Drew Lewis, my best friend from college, saying "Go Bears indeed." Good to see you, Drew. Drew and I, we met in college, best friends. Anyway, it's a long time no see, Drew. Good to see you here. Concerned that the U.S. could leave the global climate crisis if a Republican becomes president again. What will be different? Yeah, we'll talk about that in just a moment. But first and foremost, President Biden, the current president, has promised that the United States will cut carbon emissions by 52% by the year 2030 at the virtual leaders summit on climate that's happening currently. It started today. Happy Earth Day, everybody. President Biden wants to reduce the impact of our carbon emissions on the global climate. The president is hosting a 2-day virtual climate summit with 40 world leaders. And he kicked the summit off today by announcing the U.S. will aim to cut carbon emissions by up to 52% by the year 2030. This is great welcome news. We know that earlier this week, the United States and China, through John Kerry, who is the U.S. envoy on climate, agreed to cooperate with one another to reduce carbon emissions and to have an impact on climate change globally, which is good news. And we also know that earlier this year, President Biden rejoined the Paris Climate Accord, and that was something that President Trump withdrew us from, which is also very welcome news. And his new infrastructure bill that he's trying to get passed in the U.S. Senate, particularly, addresses climate change, builds renewable electricity infrastructure, and makes renewable electricity a prime focal point of the infrastructure bill. Here's President Biden this morning commemorating Earth Day and talking at this virtual summit, some of his comments about climate change and our responsibility to tackle climate change aggressively and now. President Biden.
The signs are unmistakable. The science is undeniable. And the cost of inaction keeps mounting. The United States isn't waiting. We are resolving to take action. Not only our federal government, but our cities and our states all across our country. But the truth is, America represents less than 15% of the world's emissions. No nation can solve this crisis on our own, as I know you all fully understand. All of us, and particularly those of us who represent the world's largest economies, we have to step up. Undeniable, the idea of accelerating and punishing the reality that will come if we don't move. We can't resign ourselves to that future. We have to take action, all of us. And this summit is our first step on the road we'll travel together.
That's President Biden discussing our role in reducing our carbon emissions and tackling climate change, and not resigning ourselves to a future where extreme weather events become the norm. Thanks, Bob Smith, for subscribing. Appreciate that. I'd like to get us to 370,000 subscribers. Keep on subscribing. Share this broadcast if you can. Leave a comment and let me know what you're thinking. So that's what's going on that front. Democrats, by the way, meanwhile, have passed a piece of legislation that would grant Washington, D.C. statehood. The Senate GOP, of course, will kill it unless Democrats can reform or eliminate the filibuster. This is your daily reminder that Democrats must reform the filibuster. The bill makes Washington, D.C. the nation's 51st state with one representative, 2 U.S. senators, while a tiny sliver of land, including the White House, the U.S. Capitol, and the National Mall, would remain as a federal district. Instead of District of Columbia, the new state would be known as Washington Douglas Commonwealth, an homage to Frederick Douglass, an abolitionist who lived in D.C. for the duration of his life. So pretty exciting that Democrats were able to get this done in the House. Now all eyes will be on the Senate, and all eyes are on the Senate with a number of important pieces of legislation. The HR 1, the For the People Act, which would mitigate these harmful anti-voting rights laws that are being passed by Republican state legislatures across the country. Climate change, gun reform legislation, the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. There's a lot of big, important, progressive legislation that is going to die in the United States Senate because of this anti-democratic filibuster, which implements a 60-vote supermajority requirement for basically the majority, the Democrats, to accomplish anything. And so this is your reminder. If you want to get DC statehood, to end taxation without representation for the 700,000 people who live in Washington, D.C., which, by the way, is more populous than the states of Vermont and Wyoming, then we got to eliminate the filibuster. That's your thoughts there. And Senate Republicans are always up to no good. They tried a series of gotcha questions on Stacey Abrams during the Jim Crow 2021 Senate hearing. Now, that is not my name for the hearing. That's actually what Senate Democrats called it, which I just think is awesome. And they called Stacey Abrams as a witness and failed miserably at trying to catch her in a gotcha moment. She came armed, she came prepared with receipts, and Republican Senator John Kennedy from Louisiana asked Abrams, the founder of the voting rights group Fair Fight, to list her objections to Georgia's restrictive new voting laws, which she said contained racist provisions, thinking that he had cornered maybe the nation's leading expert on voter suppression, and a person who herself was impacted by voter suppression during her 2018 gubernatorial campaign for Georgia governor, and he wasn't ready for her response. Let's listen to Stacey Abrams in the Jim Crow 2021 hearing.
Tell me, you're against the Georgia bill, I gather. Is that right?
I'm against certain provisions of it, yes.
Okay, I think you've called it a racist bill. Am I right?
I think there are provisions of it that are racist, yes.
Okay. Tell me specifically, just give me a list of the provisions that you objected.
It shortens the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks.
Okay.
It restricts the time a voter can request and return an absentee ballot application.
Right.
It requires that a voter have a photo identification or some other form of identification that they're willing to surrender in order to participate in the absentee ballot process.
If I can stop you, that's where they're going to not comparing signatures, but to voter ID?
Yes, sir. And as Ms. Eiffel has pointed out, we would become only the 4th state in the nation to require voters to put at risk their identities.
What else? What else?
It eliminates over 300 hours of Dropbox availability.
Okay, what else?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Bans what? I'm sorry?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Okay.
Meaning that if you get to a precinct and you are in line for 4 hours and you get to the end of the line and you are not there between 5 and 7 p.m.,
okay,
you
what
have
else?
to start all over again.
Is that everything?
No, it is not. No, sir. It restricts the hours of operation because it now, under the guise of setting a standardized timeline, it makes it optional for counties that may be may not want to see expanded access to the right to vote, they can now limit their hours. Instead of those hours being from 7 to 7, they're now from 9 to 5, which may have an effect on voters who cannot vote during business hours during early voting. It limits the voting
Okay, I get
hours.
the idea. I get the idea.
He gets the idea. Oh, he gets the idea, everybody. He gets the idea. Don't come for Stacey Abrams on voting rights. She'll get you. So that was just hilarious. He wasn't anticipating that long list. And, I'll note For the People Act would mitigate a lot of the harmful impacts of the anti-voting rights laws that were passed in Georgia and in states across the country by Republican legislatures who are trying to legislate Democrats out of office because they are really unhappy that we turned out in numbers they can't deny in the 2020 election for president, and then in Georgia's Senate races, which flipped to Democrats and changed the entire dynamic of American politics for at least the next 2 years. So, Senate Republicans, don't come for Stacey Abrams. And word on the street, a little birdie told me, there's some rumors that Stacey Abrams is planning a gubernatorial race in Georgia for 2022. We'll see how that goes. We'll see whether that's going to come to fruition or not. And finally, in the aftermath of the Derek Chauvin murder trial and the conviction that happened on all 3 counts, there's continued reports of police killing Black people even after the Chauvin verdict. So police officers in Ohio, California, and North Carolina have killed Black people since former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was found guilty of murdering George Floyd. A grim list of deaths at police hands that keeps growing, according to HuffPost. And officials in Columbus, Ohio, where we were following news of the young 16-year-old Black girl, Ma'Khia Bryant, who was killed just during the verdict. They've identified the police officer who fatally shot this 16-year-old girl, Ma'Khia Bryant. Nicholas Reardon, a white officer who joined the department in December 2019, fired 4 shots at Ma'Khia and killing her. An investigation is underway. So that was really troubling video because, Ma'Khia, they released some body cam footage that shows her brandishing a knife, and it's limited body cam footage. So they're using that as the justification for shooting her, even though, there's no other way that you can handle this intense situation other than firing 4 bullets into a 16-year-old girl. Are there not tasers, pellet guns, something else that could maybe, render her, calm her down or take her out of the aggressive stance? But more importantly, she is the one that called the police. Now, this is the piece of the puzzle that is the most damning in this situation. She is actually one that called the police. So she was calling the police. She was engaged in some sort of encounter where she needed police assistance, and then the police ended up shooting her. And she's 16 years old. So, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. And the Derek Chauvin verdict very quickly coming to understand that the Derek Chauvin verdict may have found justice for George Floyd in that one specific instance, but that this is a pervasive systemic problem that's going to continue and that needs more than just this guilty verdict in the case of Derek Chauvin. It's going to need systemic reforms. It's going to need reimagining policing. And I want to just say this. Imagine if we took some of the exorbitant funding that we put into police departments across the country and made them these militarized surveillance state operations, and took just some of that exorbitant funding and redirected it towards mental health treatment, drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs, after-school programs for children, education, community-based services. Imagine what would happen if we reinvested in communities instead of in policing that cracks down on and kills members of those community and doesn't get to the source or the root of why there is disparity in these communities or even suffering in these communities to begin with. Imagine if we invested in communities. Little Falls, Minnesota, a town in Minnesota, they in the early 2010s, they had an opioid crisis that was ravaging the country. And what that city did was they took a little bit of state grant funding and they redirected it towards drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs. And instead of arresting and incarcerating and criminalizing people who were arrested or caught on drug-related offenses, they took those people and rediverted them to drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs instead. And what they found in that town was that within 6 months, they eradicated the opioid crisis. 6 months. That was by investing in their community rather than continuing to crack down on it. And I think that that's a really important case study and can be used on a larger scale when we talk about reimagining policing in the aftermath of the killing of George Floyd and as these killings continue. So this has been the AM Report for Haps News Network of Now. We're live every weekday morning with all of your quick political news and headlines to get your day started right. If you like this journalism, if you like this content, please consider sponsoring it. You can do that at haps.tv/@Alex, where you can become a recurring monthly sponsor, buy me a cup of coffee if you like, or just click the subscribe button and you'll get a notification when we go live every morning. We'll be back tomorrow, Friday, for our Friday political roundup with my special guest and dear friend, Rance Collins, editor-in-chief of 800 Democrat. And it's our Ask Us Anything episode, so you can come on and ask us as many scandalous questions as you like, personal or political, we don't care. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys. Hey, Mark, good to see you. Raymond, thank you for the Appreciate You Award. Appreciate that. Michelle, thank you for chiming in. Michelle loves Rance. She's a fan, so she'll be tuning in tomorrow. And Let It Be, hello from Reno. Good to see you. Hey, you guys, have a fabulous Thursday, and we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.